Welcome to Inside the Numbers, the nation's longest running sports betting talk show on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Now let's turn it over to Danny B.
Everybody, welcome to Inside the Numbers, and let's welcome in the 2022 baseball season. Started off rocky, a week and a half rainouts to start the season. Boston Yankees, Seattle, Minnesota, Mets in a time change. They're hoping by opening pitch the sun's going to come out. So again, not the way we anticipated starting the season, but here it is, opening day. And before I get into the batter's box, before I get into the show, I want to talk about the show a little bit. And again, it's Inside the Numbers. I'm Danny B, for those not familiar with me. The show's going to air on Mondays and Fridays, except for today because it's opening day. Mondays, it'll be available at 4, same on Friday. Friday, we're going to preview. Monday, we're going to recap. We're going to have great guests from Glendon Rush, Randy Cross, Dwyer Brown. We're going to have some of the sharpest sports bettors alive are going to join this show and share some tips with you. And of course, so will I. We're going to have contests. We're going to have giveaways. Again, this is a new show, but I'm not new to the business. I've been doing this since 1994, and now here I am on Empty the Bench Podcast Network, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and wherever else, Spotify, etc. But again, it's a soggy day. I'm not in the city, thank God. I was living up there a couple of years ago. I'm glad I got away from that rat race. But from afar, New York is a beautiful place to visit, but nobody's visiting Yankee Stadium today. My friends are all upset. They were all ready to go. A whole crew of them. Rain out. Actually, it was postponed yesterday, Sam. And the Met game might even be postponed. Again, we're going to have great guests. I mentioned a few. We're going to do a live show eventually, but due to scheduling, we have to pre-record the show. But it should be available on Mondays by 4 and Friday at 4. In a second, I'm going to bring in Nick, the owner of Empty the Bench Podcast Network. He's done a great job putting a nice crew together, some great shows. So make sure you visit them and give them a follow. So let's bring in Nick and let's get into the batter's box. And again, this is a preview show. This is not, the show will be longer, but this is a small preview of what to expect from the show and some of the things we're going to do. Pros against the Joe contest, test your skills against some of the sharpest sports bettors alive, and including the crew at Empty the Bench, Nick. I know you guys like to talk sports, win totals you discussed yesterday. We're going to share some thoughts with you as well. So what's your thoughts on opening day? And then I know you're going to have some questions for me, my career, etc. So what you got to say?
So I love baseball. I've always loved baseball. Opening day is fun now. It's a little frustrating because I heard you talk about the lockout. I've talked about the lockout. We went 100 days and we thought we weren't going to have the first 2 weeks of baseball. So you know what? I'm positive for now. I'm not happy about all the TV deal, Peacock and Apple TV Plus, and
that's out of our control. Bottom line is we just are fans. We want to watch baseball, Nick. No, this is what it's about. We have no say anyway what they're going to do. That's up to them. They're billionaires and we're just peasants in their mind that spend hundreds of dollars to visit the ballparks, which is another topic. I mean, as a kid, I'm going to be 60 in a few months. I can get into the ballpark for $10. That's travel money. That's gate money. Leave there with a pretzel, and have a good time for 10, 12, 15 bucks. And you can sneak down, get the good seats. Not no more. You better, if you take 4 people to a ball game, Yankee Stadium per se. My friends had tickets way out there, nosebleeds, way out there. They look like they were on apartment buildings, perhaps. Like $1.30 a seat for the cheap stuff. That's Yankee Stadium, though. But yeah, I'm excited. What were we, like 10 days late? We were supposed to start late March, right? Here it is, the 7th. So we're about 10 days, 9 days late, give or take.
Yeah, I mean, and I want to go back to one of the stadiums where you're actually talking about this. I went to Wrigley Field, and they actually have seats on the building.
They do.
Which of all random places, by the way, that was interesting seeing that up close and personal at Wrigley Field.
How free, right? I think the owners of the building, they sell the tickets too now to to the fans that can't get into the game, and it's a lot cheaper, I believe, too.
It's a lease. I think it's a lease agreement between the building and the fans, which is nice because at least they get to be there and see the games, even if it's from a far distance. But usually, when you're sitting outside the stadium, you can't see anything.
No, if I'm going to a game, and it's been a while, last time I went was Boston in 2018. They played Texas. Cologne was throwing against Sale. He's hurt too, right? Another pitcher. And I don't even want to get into Jake DeGrom. I'm upset. They can't win without this guy, and he's on the shelf for about 2 months. And will he be as effective? And again, to call him a Hall of Fame is going to be tough. He doesn't have the innings. His numbers are fantastic when he's healthy, but he's had some injuries. I met him back in 2014 at a Philly Met game. Nice guy. He had the long hair, of course, back then. Signed the ball for us and the kids, David Wright as well. I never expected him to do what he did, but you know what? I'm worried about him. I'm worried about the Mets as well, Nick, but I'm worried about baseball. I mean, are the fans still engaged? Too many changes. I do like the DH in both leagues, though.
I do too. Yeah, because no one wants to see the pitcher hit. I just don't want to do it.
It's, you know what, Ohtani, though, I mean, he's pitching tonight, and I think that Houston wins that one. I have no official plays, really. You know, if you want to get technical on opening day, the Mets, they've done very well the last 20 years. Traditionally, I think they're like 39-21 or 39-21 on opening day since 1962. I think over the last 20 years, they're like 14-6, 15, or something like that. So
historically good on opening day.
There you go. Tonight it's what's Miguel filling in. Maxie's throwing tomorrow, you said, right?
Yeah. So this news is weird with Max Scherzer, where they said, "Oh, he's going to be our opening guy." After Jacob deGrom went down, then he said randomly, "Oh, I'm going to be pitching game 2 without any."
He decides when he's going to pitch.
And I was like, wait a minute. How do you get to decide when you pitch? Your $43 million a year pitcher is deciding when to pitch.
You know what? We go back and forth. Some people believe the players deserve the money and, you know, the owners are making, but they're the owners. And that's another show. We'll talk about that. But again, I'm a type of guy, and Nick, I know you're going to ask me questions in a little bit. I don't script the show out. Whatever comes up, we will cover a lot of topics, but sometimes I go on a little run and I get back to where I wanted to. But yeah, this is a new show starting today. It'll be back on Mondays and Fridays. And I hope you guys and girls join us at your convenience. And sometime we're going to do live shows once we get into a groove and contest. We're going to offer discounted tickets eventually to sporting events, something everybody can appreciate. Can't throw in the popcorn. You got to bring your own popcorn and Cracker Jacks. Remember Cracker Jacks? I haven't had one of them in friggin' years. You're young, Nick. What are you? Well, you're not as young. You look very young, but
how old do you think I am?
By looking at you, I know your real age now, but I thought you were only 22, 23. But
wow,
you do our other show with us, Keeping It Real, which will be airing tonight live. You're 29.
Yes.
29. Yes. And we met when you were working over at 77 WABC Radio, a great crew. The producers were great. I love all the guys behind the scene, some of the talent, you know, great people there. And I do miss that. That's the only part I missed about New York City. Even then, though, it was getting bad in 2018, you know. I won't go there unless there's something I got to be there, like something special. Not a ball game. I won't go. I'll go to the AAA Philly team over here, the Iron Pigs, and enjoy myself and not get harassed and spend $50 just to park a car. That's what's parking at Yankee Stadium. It's like $50.
Oh, first of all, when I go to games now, and this is a tip I give to everybody, take the train. Take the train. It's easier to go to Citi Field near me than it is to go to Yankee Stadium, obviously, because I can hop right on the train and then Mets Willets Point and be right there.
You know what? Ringing a bell in the 70s, it was different back then. The subways were horrible back in the 70s, really bad. And I lived in North Jersey, not too far from Manhattan. A rock throw. I had a good arm, so I can literally hit it with a rock. Almost. Sometimes it would land in the Hudson, but I would take the bus into New York, Port Authority, jump on the 8th Avenue train by myself, 8th Avenue subway, Willets Point, I cut out you save enough milk cartons back in the day, maybe 20 or 30. You got the grandstand tickets for free, $1.50. Get them for free. The subway was affordable. The buses were affordable. The hot dog, you can get everything was different then. I just remember being by myself, 12, 13 years old. My mother really didn't care, but there were times that I left Shea, extra innings. I get back to the Port Authority and the buses were stopping. You couldn't get back to New Jersey. There was no Uber back in 1975. So there was a couple of times as a young kid, I wound up sleeping in the Port Authority until the buses resumed in the morning. But
wow.
Yeah, this show's going to be about sports. It's going to be about sports betting, but we're also going to tell stories. And that's what I enjoy doing, sharing my stories about the business and how it's changed. And that's some of the questions you're going to be asking me. On top of some plays, we'll throw out some again. Today, officially, I don't really like anything. There's some big numbers. Maybe Cleveland looked okay, and I expect a good season from Cleveland. White Sox on the year, they should do well. Milwaukee should do well this year. They should go, over the win total of, I think, 89.5. We'll get that in a little bit. But, yeah, we're going to discuss a lot of different things. You're going to love our guest. Randy Cross will discuss the USFL a couple of weeks down the road. Hope to get Dwyer Brown back on from Field of Dreams. Hey, Dad, you want to have a catch? Which I did have a catch with him back in the day with my kids. I've thrown pictures up there. What a great moment. I didn't have a dad growing up, so for me, that was really special. We're in Staten Island. I think the Yankees single A club's out there, right? Staten Island, right by the police station.
Yeah.
Police station right there. Good time. Put me up in those boxes, and, it was a rain delay, extra innings. And after the game, he always plays catch with everybody, but it was really a good experience. And he has some great stories about baseball. And a lot of us older guys and younger guys can relate to baseball. It brings you close to your dad. It's something, I don't know. I love it. It kept me out of a lot of trouble as a kid, baseball, because that's what I did. If I wasn't playing it was baseball, by throwing the ball up in the air. But again, this show is a preview show, and we're going to find our way around the clock here in a bit. I don't know, what are we going to do? Like a half hour, Nick, 45 minutes, give or take. It should be enough for a show, depending on the guest as well.
Somewhere between a half an hour and an hour. That's kind of the goal. And I was telling Danny about this. This is kind of like an episode 0 is the way we're thinking of it, where this is kind of our preview. It's going to be put out as a podcast episode, but this is kind of the feeling out period to see where we're going to go. We're going to give everybody some new segments we're going to follow. And like you said, we're going to do a pros versus Joes, where we're going to have some of the biggest and best gamblers in the business against some people who might not have the biggest experience, me included. And
listen, sometimes the newer guys, first of all, you guys are different now. The younger, I say you guys, I mean, no offense, the younger generation, so many different options to bet. When I was young, it was sides and totals, pretty much a parlay here and there. We didn't have live betting. So more and more people are engaging now, betting small amounts, which is fine. I mean, you shouldn't bet what you don't have to lose anyway. But it's a whole different approach to this. I still keep it simple. A couple of future bets, football, of course, sides, totals, some first 5 innings. I just keep it basic, keep it simple, stupid. Remember that?
I love that saying. It's one of my favorites.
And I think it applies in life in a lot of areas. But so let's dig into this, Nick. Let's get going. Unless you have some more thoughts you want to share about this show, Inside the Numbers with me, Danny B.
You brought something interesting up, which was getting to the ballpark, not having the father figure originally. I've been to about 12 or 13 stadiums. That's actually the thing I like to do. I like to go to the different baseball stadiums. I actually travel with my father to all the games we go to.
Good.
That's kind of like the bonding time. We go for a few days. We check out the different areas. I don't know if have you been to Atlanta? Have you been to Truist Park?
I haven't been in the stadium. I've been to Atlanta. I haven't been to Wrigley. I know you've been there. Boston was my favorite stadium.
I went to Fenway. Yeah. That was weird being in enemy territory.
No, I tell you what, I know that I wore Boston hats, not just because I'm not a Boston fan, but the Biancullo name, so we were all matching, and so you got to learn how to fit in.
I learned the hard way that you wear the hats I always buy I buy a hat everywhere I go at the stadium, and I'll just wear the hat.
Right. I have a lot of hats too. You'll catch me with Pittsburgh hats on, whatever matches, Mets, Yankees. As long as it's matching my outfit, I wear it. I am a Met fan. Most people know that follow me, a Cowboy fan. Most people that follow me hate me because I'm a Cowboy fan.
Oh, come on.
I grew up outside of Giant Stadium, so it was tough being. I didn't just jump aboard in the 90s. I started in 1971, 72 when they lost to the Colts in the Super Bowl on that last second field goal by Jim O'Brien. I remember it like yesterday. Then the next year they beat Miami, and that was it. I was hooked for life and still suffering all these years later, as well as the Mets 86. So how long has it been for me now? And I'm getting older. I ain't got much lifeline left in me. Might look good, but it's catching up on me. And I just need some performance this year from the Mets, which I got to be honest, I'm concerned. Very concerned about the Yankees. I'm concerned about Toronto should exceed their win total of 92.5. They have the second win total prediction versus the Dodgers at 98.5. I ain't touching that. They won, 106 games?
106. Yep.
106. And the Giants, how many did the Giants win?
I have the numbers up here. Let me see if I can find it. They won 107 last. That 107. That was the controversy last year in the season. That the Dodgers won 106 and the Giants won 107, and they were both pissed off because one had to be the wild card in the one game play-in, which is totally unfair considering they both won over 100 games.
Well, I get it, but you know what? That's the way they designed it. Should there be change to that? I think so, but we've changed the game so much. I don't want to change it anymore. Let's talk about the shift a little bit, Nick. Have they modified it, or how's this working? Go ahead.
It's not this year. It's going to be next year in 2023.
Okay.
So basically, because the NFL, so this is the best way I can explain it. You know how in the NFL, if you shift too early, they call an illegal shift and they throw a flag on you. And the joke I made on my show, Empty the Bench, was, are they going to throw is the umpire going to have a flag in his pocket and they're going to draw a white box on the infield? And if you step over it, they're going to say, you can't do that, flag.
Yeah, how does that, I guess they got to work that out. I wasn't a fan of the major shift, moving a shortstop, shading him to the bag a little bit, depending on a hitter. But now when you got your second baseman out in right field, it's just too much. Shortstop playing second base, and third base playing shortstop. Why can't nobody slap the ball no more? Why can't
bunting?
Boom! What happened to your skills? Why do you have to pull everything? All it takes is a little contact, a little boom. With some decent legs, you're going to make it down to first base. But they're selfish. They're looking for production instead of Pete Rose style. Just get on the damn base, no matter. Rod Carew. For those that don't remember Rod Carew, this man had a stance for every pitcher out there. He'd adjust to this guy, that guy. His hands changed. But he knew how to move, and he placed that ball wherever he wanted. Wade Boggs, another one that could slap that ball wherever. So many great hitters. George Brett was a great hitter. So many, but Pete Rose was one of my favorites, even though the gambling thing, but as a gambler, I'm
what about bunting? What about bunting, though? We don't see
the bunting. That's not a base is a base,
But the third baseline is always open when these power hitters are. Take the hit, take the average. Now, we know that hitters can't do that today. There's one season I look at, ironically, it was with the Mets. Curtis Granderson, when he was with the Mets, hit 30 home runs, but only had 57 RBIs. No production off the home runs.
I remember that. Used to annoy the crap out of me. Always when nobody's on, a solo home run. But the players have gotten selfish, and I think one of the reasons is, I think most of them, if they paired their numbers, they get bonuses over 30 home runs. And so why should I bunt? 2 more home runs, I hit my bunt. So I think a lot of that factors in mentally because they're selfish now. They're not team players like they used to be when they used to be on the same club for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years. Now they're all over. They're like hoes. Whoever will pay me the most, I'll sleep with.
It's not Derek Jeter anymore, where Derek Jeter played his whole career with the Yankees. That doesn't exist.
Class act. A lot. And speaking of good hitters, you wouldn't remember Bill Matlock. He played with the Cubs in Pittsburgh. Great. He won 3 or 4 batting titles himself. You don't see players like this no more, Nick. You got some great hitters. You got some great athletes, no doubt about it. But there's no I in team, and they seem to spell team with an I these days. They don't run, which pisses me off. Get down that base. Never assume that ball is going to leave the park until it's out of here. They half-ass. They should be on second instead of first, or third instead of second.
I love when they get lazy, when they watch the fly ball, when they hit it off the net.
It bothers the crap out of me, especially when you have an over and under riding. I'm a big on my overs. I play some unders, but I'm more of an over player. A lot of my plays are a lot of underdogs too. You know, you talk about different styles of bet in baseball. I'm not going to lay. I follow rule of thumbs. On the road, I don't like laying more than 130 on the road. At home, 140, 150. That's my approach. Some players or some bettors will lay 280, 300, 350 to 1. Betting Kershaw. I remember Kershaw was going off 350, 4 to 1. He was losing. You know, how many bets does it take, especially if you're betting the same amount? 100. A lot of people bet the same amounts. They don't stagger. They don't practice money management. So you can bet a team that wins 100 games, they lose 62. And if those 62 losses were minus 180, minus 250, did you make money? And a lot of bettors will bet the same team. I focus on certain teams, like you'll see more action on Mets, Yankees, Boston, Atlanta, Philly. Certain teams I focus because I know more about their style of play. So for me, that's what I do. A lot of over and unders, like I said, but you won't see me laying 180, even if the Grom's at home, or, you know, I just don't do it. And I stay true to that. And run lines come in handy too when you got a big number, minus 1.5 runs. But when you're doing that, I like to get back a little, like minus 1.5 runs plus 110, plus 115, not minus 1.5, minus 150, minus 180. I don't do that. When I'm laying runs, I want something back in return, at least even money. And that's what I love about baseball. You don't have to hit 80%, 60%, which is impossible anyway. You can literally hit 50% and make money if you know what you're doing with baseball.
I think the interesting thing in baseball is, I guess, the combination, trying to figure out how many runs in a game. I don't know. What do you think about those type of bets?
What, over and unders?
Well, I meant because sometimes they'll do combination of runs in a game, over this amount total.
Like I said, my bets are basic. I'll bet over the 7.5 runs, under the 9 runs. First 5 innings is good when you got a shitty bullpen. You know you got your ace on the mound. It's 3-0 in the 5th. Then they pull, because in the first few starts they're not going, but 6, right? 5, 6. Some of them don't even make it. Till they get their arm strength going, and DeGrom's going to need time to get. When I spoke to Glendon Rush last, he pitched with the Mets in the World Series against the Yankees, actually. Famous picture of him with Piazza and I think Ray Ordonez during the 9/11 or during the World, something like that. There's a famous picture of those 3 standing together. I think it was the 9/11 when they came back after 9/11. But he said a pitcher needs a good 6 weeks, a good 6 weeks, because we were talking about if the season's, because remember, they were talking about the season not even starting to April 14th. And then next thing you know, okay, we come to terms and we're going to start on the 7th, right? Because they were ready to postpone. So you had called them as we were speaking, baseball is liars. They lied to us, remember? Because just one breath, a couple of more games are going to be canceled. Then the next thing, okay, we're on April 7th. I think they came to their senses, Nick, and baseball can't go through what they did back in the 90s, where it took steroids and home runs to get the fans engaged again, which worked very well, and that was a great time. You also had Cal Ripken chasing down the Ironman record, which was exciting. That helped. But that got baseball fans back engaged. My first year in the business, which I know you wanted to bring up, but I'll do it, 1994 was the first year I was in the handicapping business, not the sports betting business. It's the first year I did sports radio, and you had the baseball strike that year. 94, I remember the World Series, the Expos, when they were in Montreal, Expos were killing it. They had a lineup that was incredible, similar to the lineup up in Toronto. those kids up there, and I call them kids, son of stars up there in Toronto.
Vlad Jr. Yep.
Yeah, Biggio too up there. His kid Biggio was a good player, right? Biggio's not bad up there. Who else is up there? That
You have Bo Bichette is another
Bichette?
one.
Oh, Dante Bichette with the Rockies. I remember watching him their first year against the Mets, and I think he hit a couple of dingers. He was a good ball player. They had Larry Walker then, who was with the Expos at one time. Larry Walker with Pedro Martinez. So yeah, looking back at all these years of doing this and how it's changed, etc. It just seemed like they just snap your fingers and here we are almost 30 years later now.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this game and this dynamic works. But yeah, I like Toronto. A lot of sons of stars up there because, like we said, Vlad Jr., Bichette. I think Gary L's son is on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. So
they're loaded up there. You know, as far they should take the East, the AL East. As far as the way it looks now, again, anything can change. Look what Washington did when they won the World Series at the All-Star break. I think they were under 500, right?
They were. Yep.
Okay. So anything can happen. You make adjustments, and of course, a team killing it in April and May, they lose a couple of key players. There you go. That's why a lot of people don't like betting the futures because you're locked in. But are you really? No, you can hedge if you want to get technical. You got a future bet, and here you go. Now you lost 2. I ain't hitting 100 wins. You make the adjustments and you start betting against them or however. You just got to figure that out. But yeah, I keep my stuff simple. I know you love this live betting. Are you into this live betting on the next play and who's going to hit a home run next? That's not a lot of money in it, though.
There's a lot of money in it. I don't like it. Like they're talking about in baseball where you can bet on the next pitch being a strike or a ball. I mean, like
you gotta have a lot of time on your hand and the problem, from what I've heard from a lot of my friends that do it, you get locked out a lot. You get locked out on these DraftKings, FanDuel apps, PointsBet, except there's so many of them. They come a dime a dozen. Literally, they come a dime a dozen now. You get locked out a lot, and it gets frustrating. It always seems you get locked out on the bets that would have won. Like, okay, how did that happen? Algorithms, bots? I don't know.
Well, it could be a lot of things. I was also going to say on NFL Red Zone, they're trying to add a live betting feature. Now, for people who don't know NFL Red Zone, that's a paid package. You watch all the games and all that stuff.
Pretty interesting.
But they're talking about putting a live betting feature inside of it now. Like, come on.
They're going to do whatever they can. The only thing good about it is if there's a blowout or a runaway, you still get action on the game because fans could still bet that game that's 45-3 at the half. Gives them something to still engage in. But, yeah, we've gone in advance. I remember when this all start, 2018, right? Yeah, the sports betting really 2018, New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, New Jersey.
Delaware started years ago with the parlay cards.
Right.
They were ready for live betting in 2012, and then the NFL halted that, and they had to resort to parlay cards, which was frustrating. There's so much information out there now, and a lot of it's not accurate. Like the news channels, you got to believe which one you believe. A lot of hosts are full of controversy on these shows, too. This one says this, and just because somebody played the game doesn't mean they know how to bet the game. From my experience in dealing with players, some of the worst gamblers I've dealt with are former players that think they know everything, but they don't. You know, they were good at their position or whatever, but it's not easy doing this. And that's why I always tell everybody, first thing is allocate money that you can afford to play with, right? Things go bad, you're not killing yourself. That's what I like posting money, Nick. Betting on credit can be dangerous, and that's how I started back in the day, betting on credit, next thing I know, I'm a young kid owing money to bookmakers in the 70s, and it got out of control. So I'm a big fan of either limiting somebody. If I'm a bookie that, old school bookies, I'll put a cap on you. If you're my friend, hey, listen, I don't care how much you beg me. Your limit's $1,000 a week or $500. You only make $800 a week. What do you mean you want a $5,000 a week limit? You're
trying to do them a favor so they don't go bankrupt in the long run.
Well, yeah. I mean, the nature of what I do anyway is to try to make the most of somebody's situation, educate them, teach them from my mistakes. And I've made a lot of them. We all make, I still make mistakes. We're all making mistakes. just because you get older, you get a little wiser, they say. But that's why I've always listened to anybody, Nick. Anybody, because the stupidest person in the world can say one thing that might make sense. And I'm like, I'll use that. I like that. You know, you never stop learning.
Well,
You never stop making mistakes either.
Well, let me ask you a few questions now because I want to get to this. So, you talk about how gambling has changed and how if you listen to, and even though this show is being heard around the country, we're in New York and Jersey and the tri-state area. If you listen to a station like WFAN, you're going to hear constant gambling ads. Constant. It's taken over. It's either that or cryptocurrency are now the spots on commercial, sports talk radio.
I got it.
So, what do you think about now that gambling has taken over sports talk radio and a lot of other airwaves? It's not the way it used to be when you were doing it, right?
Well, it was taboo to talk about sports betting. It depends on the era. In the 90s, we can talk about offshore betting. We can take ads out in the USA Today, anywhere. The New York Post, you saw all of that was everywhere. Nobody bothered it. It was great, but it was in other countries: Costa Rica, Aruba, Antigua, London, Bowman's over in London, Canada, some places. Nobody really paid attention to it until after 9/11. And then about 5 in 2006, they passed this Unlawful Internet Act law, which affected money being transported to the islands, Western Union, NetTeller. I don't even know if PayPal was around then, but it was NetTeller was big. Western Union, MoneyGram were huge. So they clamped down on that. And then it became a cat and mouse game. How am I going to funnel my account? How are we going to get the money back? Then they started coming up with these different ways. Bitcoin was one of them. I was like, this is years ago. Like, yeah, they're telling me I need. I'm like, what the hell is a Bitcoin? Just send them cashier's checks? No, they don't work. Some of them do, depending on the bank. If it was Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the big names, no way, no how a action would go through. Smaller banks, mom and pop banks, they managed to get through. It wasn't the banker's responsibility. He didn't work for the Treasury Department. I'm a banker. You're telling me this guy who has $5 million in his account can't send $200,000. So you're telling me I tell this guy, and what happens if he pulls his money out of my account because he's pissed at me? So they didn't really enforce it, is a good word, right away. A couple of years later, they started hampering down really hard. So 06 had passed, October of 06. Took about a year and a half before they put the cuffs on it and made it hard. And then they started getting creative. And that's when legalization started. They talked about it. Governor Christie was a big advocate at the time. Then he kind of cat and moused that as well. So rumors of this has been going on, legalization from back. I remember I was ready to basically move to Delaware because they got the green light rather. I'm sorry. Then they put the red light on for legalization. I had billboards. I was ready to put my business out there. Hey guys, I had the sponsors lined up, and literally like a week before kickoff, I'm riding a stationary bike at the gym, and I looking at the tick. I'm like, what is this? No sports betting allowed. I just was like in shock. Because I had marketing plans. I planned it all around that, and the NFL and their muscle stopped it. And, there goes that. And then, it started talk again. And then finally in 2018, it happened. And it's everywhere. I think 40% of the states now offer it, maybe even more, 45% of the states. Florida just got some form. New York still they haven't maximized it yet, right? New York.
So they do have it. They passed it fairly recently, but they're taking 50% off the top.
Oh, yeah. That's a good incentive to keep people betting underground. That's why people are always going to bet underground. There's no tax implications. First of all, it's hard enough to win. So if you got a 1099 from DraftKings, it's a good problem because it means you did something right. But the ones that are lucky enough to win, I got to give away a portion of my winnings. When I lost, did you take that? So a lot of people, and that's another thing, if you are losing and winning, you got to save all that and factor that in. Underground will always exist for that reason. Credit, underground, meet the guy once a week, even overseas is still popular because unless you pay taxes voluntarily, they don't 1099 you from Costa Rica or Jamaica, Antigua, Aruba, Australia, wherever. So there are a lot of benefits of still using local bookies and overseas accounts. You know who uses the apps a lot? Smaller players.
Yes, they do.
They upgrade once a week. They take 200 out of their paycheck. They load up their DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever. So you don't see many, correct. And David Purdom, who covers for ESPN, and he's covered my career, many stories back in the day. I've had many conversations. I just lost my train of thought because I'm all over the place, but I wanted to make a point about that. But the smaller player, I was going to say David can elaborate on that more, was what I wanted to say. But it's basically the small. You're not getting those six-figure bets in most cases over there. Maybe Mattress Mac, somebody like that.
That guy's fun too.
I love him. I love his, you know what? He's loaded and he's doing the right thing. If I had money like that, I'd be doing the same thing.
He's charity guy too, isn't he? He does charity a lot too.
He's a great guy. He's one of those guys you got to love, you know, and I'm always rooting for him. He was wrong in the football championship game, though. We like the other side. We like Georgia. He was big on Bama, right? I think.
Yeah, big time. Big money.
Big money. But I think he got it back somewhere. I forgot, on the Super Bowl. Didn't he bet the Super Bowl correctly?
Oh, God. He bet millions on the Super Bowl. I don't remember. I think he bet the Rams to cover, I think.
Was exciting. Yeah. You know what? It comes like this, Nick. Before you know it, we've talked the draft. This is a cycle. And for those sports, some just jump in and jump out. They only play NFL. They don't play this. They don't play that. They don't like baseball because it's boring. Well, don't watch it. It's tough. It is tough. I get it, especially for younger generation. Me, I enjoy every pitch. I dissect it. I enjoy, like, what is it? I can basically tell you what's going to happen next, like where the ball's going, what's going to happen.
I like doing that too. Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I sit there. I like watching the games by myself too. Football definitely, but baseball, I like sitting there, and I don't like being disturbed. And again, I watch a lot of Yankee games, Boston games. You'll see some of my clients, they know, like, you lean heavily on like 9 to 10, 12 teams. What about the rest of the field? And I'll cherry pick them, but I focus on what I'm good at. And I think we all should do that. Strictly stick to your strengths in life. You know, I think that's good advice.
Right. And let's see, where do I want to go? Oh, okay. I know where I want to go next. So talking about networks like Fantasy Network, which you and I have talked about a bunch. You went down there a few times.
Right. Many times. Recorded a few shows there, probably a dozen or so shows there or so.
And so you have networks like that. You have VSiN, Vegas Stats and Information Network. That's Brent Musburger's network. Or Barstool, which you and I have talked about a bunch.
Good for those fellas. I remember when they first started, I was like, what's this? And God bless them. I mean, what do they get? 1 million every time they put a video out? They get 1 million likes on it and views. So good for them. I'm happy for them.
So what do you think about? Did you ever think in your wildest dreams when you first started doing this business that you would see networks like VSiN or Barstool or Fantasy Network where they would just do strictly gambling content networks? Did you ever see that happen?
Well, you know what? Vaguely, like when this Unlawful Internet Act took place in 2006, fantasy betting became more popular. Fantasy betting's been around for years.
It's huge. Yeah.
It started in the 60s, actually. If you dig the history of fantasy sports betting, I don't partake in it, but I did a little research. It really started in the 60s. If some kids in college started it, it evolved, and it really became popular because there was money involved after they hampered the sports betting world with the funneling of the money. So that became, and then I started seeing shows pop, and that's what really hurt the business too, was when poker stars, that too much money came in. That's when the feds got involved because there was a lot of money involved.
They froze it.
I did have a vision. I was kind of shocked when Musburger decided to jump in, but sometimes you listen to these guys talk before legalization. They, well, there's nobody watching right now. This is a blowout. But then again, there's still some people on this. They were always like, I don't know, subliminal messages about betting. So that's a good word, subliminal messaging. It's always been out there to talk about it. I think it's good. It's good, and there's a lot of money in it. Big sponsorship.
Huge.
It's huge. I mean, it is what it is. You just got to change. I've been a guy for many years fighting technology, and then I realized you're not going to beat this. Like I started doing podcasting back in 2013, only because they kept pushing me to do it,
Well,
And I saw a lot of negativity in it with social media, and I was kind of like, I don't
yeah,
know.
but I think you realized finally once I pushed you back in here that I can.
You had a lot to do with it. I mean, my wife and I, obviously, we did our little fun show that we do, Keeping It Real, which is a lot of fun every Thursday night on the same network here and on Twitter as well. Got to throw that a little plug. We sit back, we knock out a couple of drinks, we talk about life, current events, kids, just call it Keeping It Real. Basically, a half hour before the show starts, we warm up with insults. Couple of drinks, F you, shut up. Okay, what are we going to start the show with? So that's our warm up. Like batters get into the kick some swings. That's us. We have a drink or two, share some insults, and lights, camera, action. We'll be on live tonight on the same network here at 6:00 sharp.
So I looked up the statistic you were asking about when fantasy sports started is 1962.
Right. And then in the late 60s, it took off a little bit more. I think in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken.
It says it started in a New York City hotel. So
maybe. Okay. Again, that's not my area of expertise. And that's where I met a lot of the great guests actually at the Fantasy Sports Network. Gabe Morency, Corey Parson. He's going to join us possibly Monday. Again, it's in the beginning to arrange until we get the shows down, and which we're working on. And again, I want to do live shows because that's always fun. You have no room for error.
Hey, you mess up and you just got to keep going.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've done it. I've always ad lib, you get through it. You adapt and overcome like a good soldier would. But Corey was great. I met Craig Carton over there.
I was going to ask you about that. Can you talk about experience possibly seeing Craig Carton at all? Or meeting him? Yeah, meeting him.
I've met him in the past. Nice guy. This is during his, he was going through shit then.
Experimental period, so to speak.
Yeah, he liked me. We talked sports a little bit. And obviously he's great at what he does. I'll never take credit away from these guys. Like even Sid Rosenberg, he's just amazing at what he does. A lot of people like him or they don't like him, but that's life. But he's very talented. Russ Salzberg was always fun to be around. Even Curtis, I know people feel differently about Curtis. He was good to talk sports about. But I don't know. I mean, maybe one day I'm not opposed to it. We had a nice lunch one day. It was great. And again, I filmed in the same place that they were filming Carton and Friends with Corey and Michelle. And then Gabe came in with the show the morning after, shortly after. Joe Lisi, who's an amazing college football analyst, he started with them. I met him at Sid Sports Sunday. I met a lot of good people over the years. Actually, I one of my favorite interviews was Matt Lauer just got done interviewing Dwyer Brown from Field of Dreams. And then he jumped on shortly after me. And I remember my opening was, it wasn't Matt Lauer. He did interview him. Was, what's his name? Bob Costas.
Oh, Costas. Yeah.
He said, I'm not Bob Costas by no means, but gosh, it's so good to have you. So that was a great interview. That was one of my favorite interviews of all time. But I would listen, why would I be opposed to these guys are stars? I'm just a lonely guy here making a living, a family guy, doing my thing. No major networks. I'm on major networks. I'm on radio in Los Angeles for many, many years. AM 570, LA, home of the Dodgers, down in Miami, bounced around. But I've had a steady home out in Los Angeles now since the 90s. And I'm on early in the morning out there. But I'm kind of shifting now because people ain't listening to sports radio on AM no more. Hardly. I mean,
it's difficult,
especially on the weekends. Monday through Friday, it's a little different. But weekend programming on AM radio is just, it's different. It lost its thunder. It used to be huge. But
the problem with sports talk, especially AM radio, there's no such thing, and this is in the news space too, which I came from in talk. No one does local radio anymore. All radio now is part of a network. They take syndicated shows, and when I was at ABC, when you and I were there, about 75 to 80% of the scheduling was syndicated, which is a problem. You can't make any money that way.
I remember being there on the weekends listening to it, and like, there's nobody even here. Where are they recording from? And then, you guys explained how it works. And I was like, really? What happened to what was? Even locally here, I'm in a small area. I'm in Easton, Pennsylvania. It's a pop, if you know Pennsylvania. Easton's a big city. Larry Holmes, former champ. It's changing here too. Cumulus, actually, and you know about Cumulus. They came in and they took over Fox here. I think it was Fox. A lot of laws, a lot of rules, a lot of politics with them. It's just totally changing. I work with the best young DJ in the Valley. They call it Lehigh Valley. Joel on air. He's amazing. You'd love him. Young, 23 years old. He's just getting into syndication himself. But yeah, it's tough. It's too much. You know what I didn't like about the networks? Too much politics. Too much. You can't do this. You got to do that. I like to wing it, you know, and that's how I've done my shows since '94, just winging it. I know who my guests are. Sometimes they don't even show. Sometimes they stuck in traffic. They can't get to this. Things happen. You got to just ad lib. And so I have a basic idea mentally where I'm going with a show, but very seldom I'll have some cheat notes. Peek at them if I'm looking for a number because, you know, you forget shit sometimes.
Yeah, and then I can get you stuff too. So
yeah, that'll be fun. You'll be the statistical guy. I'll be the guy that brings in the guest. We talk some sports. I share my insights, my opinions, but you're going to love people. You're going to love some of the guests I have. And the Philly Godfather is always an amazing guest. John Layfield, amazing guest, former WWE SmackDown champ, loves betting, different odds makers. Chris Andrews from the South Point always was a good guest. Who else? What's his name from PointsBet? Johnny Atkins at PointsBet. John Avila from DraftKings. They were on my show in New York City. You know what happened? And if you guys are watching, my phone crashed, Nick. We talked about this. And I didn't have it backed up. It was an older phone. And I thought I did, but I didn't. And it totally crashed. It died. I couldn't bring back any of the contacts. They might be up there in that thing up there, cloud. And
the cloud, yes.
I don't know. I found a picture floating on my phone on that. I'm like, wait a second. Where did this come from? What bothered me the most was a lot of it was me taking my kids to the games back in the day. A lot of sentimental but important contacts. So I'm sitting here scrambling, contacting these guys through Messenger and Facebook, etc. So that did suck to lose my phone, but I do like my new Samsung S20. A little plug for. I'm not a what do they call the Apple? I'm not an Apple guy. I like my Galaxy. And
stuff. You're not an iPhone guy.
Probably a better device in the long run, but I'm just familiar with what I'm familiar with. But I know you had some questions you wanted to fire away. We're probably approaching our 40-minute mark.
Actually, we're getting close to an hour. But it's just fine.
Okay, you want to wing it, but you want some questions?
Yeah. So the one I wanted to ask about was, you and I talked about this before we started, HBO, the Real Sports special. You said you're coming up on 25 years on that, right?
It was actually 25 years ago this month that I started filming that segment that aired in September of the same year, 1997. Yeah, that was a great time. I met some really good people. It seemed like yesterday. It'll be the 25th anniversary of the filming, but September it'd be 25. And they all got Emmys. The producer, Brian Gumble, got it. Jim Lampley got one for it. And the producer, Matt Morantz, who did an amazing job. Jersey guy. I'm a Jersey guy, so... yeah, that was a great time, and you know it aired. Well, I forgot the title of it, but how HBO stumbled across me at the time. I was working for a guy who owned an offshore casino. He had a handicapping business, and he had a magazine called the Las Vegas Sporting News, not the Sporting News, the Las Vegas Sporting News. They actually had copyright issues over that, whatever. And I wrote an article called "Behind the Scene of a Multi-Million-Dollar Scheme." And it got the attention of HBO, who at the time was already doing a report about the business, the handicapping business, which was around for years. You know, probably became popular in the late 70s. There's always been handicappers at the horse track, right? Yeah, I know a guy. I got a tip. You know, there's always that guy at the tout, right? But in the 80s, the services started popping up, and there was an article in Sports Illustrated in the early 90s about it. But then in the late 90s, HBO was doing an investigation, and they stumbled across the article. They approached me if I wanted to come on camera, and I did, and it was a good time. But yeah, it was 25 years ago, and that kind of I made my mark by that. I guess people knew who I was when I did that show. It was a fun show. Again, Emmy Award winning show. So did okay with that. And so here I am all these years later. I think this will be season 28 on radio. It's a long
Wow.
time. But yeah, my career in the sports betting business started beyond that, though. I started betting in the 70s. We all did in my area. You're a cop, a fireman, or a degenerate gambler, and didn't put out fires, and I definitely didn't have a badge. So I went the other route, and I got out of the military in the early 80s. I was in the infantry, jumping out of helicopters and stuff. They weren't exactly hiring, mercenaries on the street. So I didn't know what to do, but I got back in the gambling world and spent from 83 to 94 basically doing that. A couple of stops along the way, overseas a little bit. But then in 1994, my cousin was going to come to California. Well, there's this new business. My guy's in this business. You'll love it. You get picks. You share your knowledge. You can make a lot of money. And you get on TV. And I'm like, I don't know who spends money to buy picks. And then I started research. I'm like, you know what? This could be a pretty good opportunity. So I started working in 94 for a well-known handicapper at the time. Not going to drop any names or anything, but spent a year in California just doing that, learning the trade and honing my skills, I guess, camera skills and stuff. And then in 95, after the Super Bowl, when San Francisco destroyed the Chargers and Junior Seau, my mom's husband passed away. We didn't get along, so it was a good time to go spend time with her. It's only supposed to be a week. I ran into somebody at the gym. We started talking. What do you do? I explained, and you got to meet this guy. You're going to love him. And a 1-week vacation turned into years of staying in Pennsylvania, never leaving. And went to Florida a little bit, got married, and moved to Florida for 4 or 5 years. Came back here, and back in 2005, Pennsylvania. Moved back to Jersey, as you know, for a little bit, for a cup of coffee. Pandemic hit. We left right before. 77 was upside down at the time. They were making changes. Did this show with Sid, which was great. I loved my wife and I had our own show on Saturday nights for 20 weeks this show or so. But yeah, you know what? I just look back. I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of change in this industry, Nick. It gets a black eye, rightfully so. There's a lot of scum in the industry. There's some good guys too. You just gotta. Again, my advice to anybody out there is never bet more than you could afford to lose. Be smart with your money. Put your emotions aside if possible. Don't take a loss personal. In other words, don't start chasing a bet because I should have won that. I should have had that game. Come on, last second. Who's next? Who's next? And that's where the mindset goes. Excuse me. And then also, you're out Friday night drinking all night. Saturday, you wake up with a hangover. It's 11 o'clock. You got an hour before 12 o'clock kickoff. You said you might have spent too much money last night. Might have lost the Friday night game because basically there's football every night of the week these days. So, you get caught up in it. Just got to think with a clear head and try to tame your emotions. Don't have the good guy or the bad guy or whatever side they sit on.
Oh, the devil and the angel. Yeah.
Yeah, the bookmaker and the bettor, the bookie, the bettor. You got to fight it. It's just tough. It's not easy. That's why only 3% actually make money at it. And looking for perfection, it ain't going to happen. Literally, if you hit 57%, you're making a decent living at it.
You just hit something on the mark that I was thinking of. People who say that they're in the business professionally and they're
what does that mean? I'm in the business because I got a website. That means I'm
no. Wait a second. Follow my logic here. Okay. So there's people out there like the VSINs and the DraftKings and the Barstools, and they say, well, I do this professionally. I can get. They almost make guarantees that if you take our bets. Don't you think that's kind of weird when people say
if that's your sole income and that's what you do, you're doing it for a living. If that's your only, a lot of guys that do this, they work 9 to 5, they have a handicapping site, they send out some emails, and now they're experts.
No, but what I mean is it weird for those type of people to say, well,
not at all. I mean, it's
that they're almost guaranteeing in a sense because of their betting.
You be careful too, because a lot of these major sites, they'll have multi-handicappers, 10, 20, and Monday night game especially, they'll divide the room. 10 will like the Cowboys, 10 will like the Redskins. So the websites winning, somebody's winning, so you'll get false claims that, hey, we had a winning night. No, one of you guys had a winning night, and they'll always showcase the guy who won that night. They're never going to talk about the guy that lost. But there's some really good. Listen, Beason, it was a good. It's not for me. I think it's boring at times. I'm not one that watches many shows, to be honest, which I don't even watch my own stuff. I very seldom listen to my own shows just to make sure that it's running on a Saturday, make sure the station, a lot of times, because even my stuff, I got to pre-record it, right? Because it's Miami, it's all over different time zones. And as you know, there's nobody hardly in the studio, so you have to do pre-recorded. Sometimes they'll mess up. So I'll just tune in. Okay, it's on here. It's on. I don't listen to, even when I was doing my show with my good buddy Coco Diaz, Joey Diaz, The Church of What's Happening Now. I did the interview. I never listened. I did many shows with him. I don't even really watch TV much, to be honest. I don't even watch. I watch certain shows. The games I'll watch. I don't watch ESPN much. I'll check in once in a while. Just had enough. I'm tired of watching stuff with politics, to be honest, which I just want to watch sports. I don't want to be bothered with the nonsense. That's what's good about this stuff. We can literally talk about sports without bringing in this guy or that guy or who's right or who's wrong or who's on the left and all that neat stuff. So that's the beauty of how we're coming at the people today, rather than even when I'm on AM radio, I got to watch certain things and I slip up. Sometimes I want to say shit. I say shit. I'm like, that should be okay, but it's not. But on South Park, it is. You can't say. So I'm thinking, wait a second, I just said shit. And I actually got banned for a while in Kansas City because
you told me that story. Yeah.
08, 09, it was right during March Madness. I said they've made a shitload of money if you bet it with or against this team. And I got pulled. They punished me for like 4 weeks.
Did they dump it though? That's the question.
They dumped it for 4 weeks, and that was my punishment.
But wait a minute. If they dumped
it, dumped me, who was paying for the show? Like
no. Hold on. Did they actually dump it on
they let the show go? They did.
So then that's their fault for not catching it.
That's what I said. I said my producer at the time, she didn't know. She was but she didn't know. I guess, I don't know. It was a miscommunication. Maybe she told me no, but I said I could probably say that word. I don't know. But anyway, the shit was left there by both our producers and whoever listens on the other end. But yeah, they banned me for 4 weeks, took me out of the tournament. But I was spending money. So who are you really punishing? Okay, so I won't spend $800 a week advertising with.
They're losing the money by not having you.
They put it in with Fox. You know what they do? A lot of filler. When they can't sell advertisement, which is another thing on radio. They want too much money these days to advertise. It's not there. That's why the sports books are willing to pay. That's why the casinos are willing to pay. Because guess what? They have endless money. They got
I don't know if it's that they have endless money. It's that because I look at some of the businesses and DraftKings and FanDuel, top two in the betting space. I think they spend about the same amount of money as they take in. I think, at least from what
coming in and going out.
Because if you look, comparing them to Barstool,
okay, the argument is they spend a boatload of money, right?
They spend a boatload to make a boatload, so essentially they're evening out.
Well, you know what? It's like a bookmaker. You try to live on a vig. If there's 10% left over, so that's their mentality. And that's what bookies do. Now they don't gamble. Back in the day, that's another thing. What's changed in the business is bookies were all paper and pen, and they would use the newspaper. So you can really take shots at these guys back in the day before the internet started and information started. So you had a lot of guys, and there was a lot of bookies that were gamblers that they would set lines according to who they liked, and they were getting beat up. With technology now, as soon as so much money comes in, the numbers change based upon the handle. Some casinos bigger have a larger gap where they move it from 7 to 7.5. For every action is a reaction in this business. So it's definitely changed. Some think for the better. For me, I liked it when people needed more help, okay? Because I'm in the help business and there's free information out there. And so I get it. It's part of the change of life. I don't like a lot of things going on in the world. I don't. It's an ugly world right now. You try to embrace and make the most of it.
The problem with free information, you said it before, is when you go out into the wide world of the internet, you don't know who to believe, and that's why, like when you go on Twitter or you go on Facebook, when Well, the reason I bring it up is because I only look at accounts that have verification next to it.
Your check mark. Yeah.
Right. If they don't have it, you don't trust anything that they say.
And even then, it still could be opinionated too, and that's it. You can trust their opinion, perhaps, but I wanted to bring something else up, Nick. I forgot. And again,
We should wrap it up. We should wrap it up anyway because we're at an hour, about an hour anyway.
I had a good point to make, but I'm sure it'll come to me as soon as we go dark. But yeah, again, I hope everybody tunes in Monday at 4. We're going to record earlier, as I said. And then again on Friday, normally Friday we'll do previews. Monday we'll recap, talk about some matchups during the week. And I really didn't get into much picks because I really don't like any today. 7 games. There's a good chance Washington Met game gets postponed. Maybe take a shot tonight. Houston, maybe Cleveland, but nothing official. I like to watch a couple of games go by. I'm a big guy that I like betting on Sundays, the last game of the series. You see what happened Friday and Saturday. If you got a home team lost 2 in a row, good teams at home, hard to sweep. So we'll get into different strategies as the weeks progress, but preview show in the books, 0 as you called it, Nick. But
0.
I did have one real good point to make, but again, I had a Danny B brain fart. It's going to happen. But anyway, guys, girls, Nick, thanks for inviting me onto the network, and I look forward to bigger and better things. Sponsors, right? You got your friends at Knockbag.
Yeah, we're gonna get that on here soon. I promise.
Yeah, well, again, the other shows they sponsor it. It's a good company, good bag. And then maybe one day you go to the casino, you make a score, you fill it up, you fill that bag up with some money if you're lucky. And that's the key word, if you're lucky. But again, thanks for spending time with us this opening day. A dreary, ugly. My windows are wide open and it's nothing out there but drizzle. Opening day, hours away. First game postponed. So let's just hope for better things down the road, Nick. It should be an exciting season, and it should be an exciting show. It should be informative. Again, great guests, giveaways, contests. So thanks for spending time with us this Thursday afternoon, April 7th here. Be good, my friends.